Today we're going to learn about how to protect your back. Now you can see that everyday things that you pick up off the floor, you want to learn how to hinge. The wrong way of doing this would be to arch your back like this, going down and then standing up tall. Right way is to hinge back and pick it up. Next we're going to demonstrate a box squat, and similar just to picking something up off the floor, you're going to start by hinging back, and a good way to cue this is by putting your hands in your hip crease and drive your hips straight backwards. You're going to notice how the angle of the shin and the knee is about mid-foot. It's not, the knee does not go over the toes, and the hip angle is greater than the knee angle. Now in this one, you can see that the knee angle is greater than the hip angle, and this can lead to knee pain in a lot of cases. If you feel like your knees are shooting forward, this would be somewhere you could practice on really trying to focus on hinging at the hip. And now sometimes you'll hear the cue, stick your butt out, and a lot of people will interpret that as rotating their hips forward like this. What that does is it tips the base of the spine forward, and then it leads into this excessive tipping in the front. Now if you neutralize, or if you fix your hips so that they're neutral, so the base of your spine is straight up and down, and then hinge at the hips, you're going to still see that back angle, but the spine remains neutral, and you'll feel like in a much safer position. Moving on to a kettlebell swing, you're going to see all the same concepts. This might even be boring for the sake of repetition, but it is these fundamental elements that will make up all of your heavy lifting and progress. You don't want to arch your back or arch your spine. You want to learn how to control your spine by hinging back at the hips and learning how to use your hips as your primary mover, keeping those knees in place, hiking it like a football, that's how I like to call it. And you'll see that your arms should be loose. Your hips will determine how far that kettlebell goes. And when you're done, you can hinge back and simply let that kettlebell fall down and keep your back safe. We're going to move on to a barbell squat, and you'll see all these same elements. Perfecting these fundamental movement patterns is going to be key in your success. So we're going to start standing tall, and we'll see that as we descend, we want to have that movement start right at the hips. We don't want the spine to bend, and as we get deep down to a squat, you're going to see and notice that same angle. The hip angle is greater than the knee angle, and we're maintaining that neutral spine position. And after we're done, both feet together, bring it in, and that's the smoothest way of racking and unracking a barbell. Now, everyday things like just reaching down to put a clip on a barbell, you'll notice that you want to remember to do this pretty much for everything that you pick up. Hinge your hips back, and you will keep that back safe. Anytime you round your back, you are chipping away at the integrity of your spine. You'll see a lot of people sometimes, they want to, especially with the deadlift, they want to lift upwards, and they will look like an angry cat. So you'll see this sometimes. Somebody will try to lift the bar straight up, and when your hips try to go behind your shoulders, your back will bend. So the other technique that you would want to use is this same hinge pattern, and instead of picking the barbell up, you want to get tight and drive your hips forward. So we call this the lifter's wedge, and this was a term that you'll hear Stuart McGill, he's a back specialist, use, and it's something that he uses to assess an athlete's technique and risk assessment for injury. The sumo deadlift is when you have your feet out wide. You want to have your ankles in alignment with your knees, and you're going to see the same pattern of hinging those hips back, getting tight, pulling those shoulders in place, and just wedging those hips through. And that's how you would execute a sumo deadlift. So from box squat to kettlebell swing to squat to deadlift, you're going to see all of the same fundamental movements that will keep your back safe.